Russian troops are moving on Ukrainian streets, but one nation has avoided calling it an invasion, and it's the same nation that could stand to benefit from the attack. The Justice Department is ending a program that cracks down on Beijing's intellectual property theft. This after controversies that is amping up racism against Asian Americans. The Beijing Winter Games saw the lowest Olympic viewer numbers in decades. Broadcaster NBC says its TV ratings hit an all-time low. A group of meditators forced to choose between their pensions and their faith. It's a common problem for retirees who practice the spiritual discipline Falun Gong in China. One of them tells her story. And Beijing is set to invest in new multi-billion-dollar coal mine projects. That's despite a recent pledge to reduce CO2 emissions. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Chenny Wu, in for Tiffany. Russian troops have moved into Ukraine. Nations like the US and Europe have been quick to clarify their stance, labeling the military move an invasion. But Russia's most powerful ally doesn't seem to be taking a stand, one way or the other. Here's more.
Russian forces invaded Ukraine on Thursday in a mass assault on land, sea, and air. This marks the biggest attack by one state against another in Europe since World War II. Russian missiles rained down on Ukraine cities, and Ukraine reported columns of troops pouring across the borders into the east. Russian troops landed by sea at port cities in the south. Explosions were heard before dawn in the capital of Kyiv. Gunfire rattled, siren blared, and the highway out of the city choked with traffic as residents fled. Black smoke rose over the headquarters of Ukraine's military intelligence. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg condemned the invasion as a grave moment for the security of Europe and vowed to defend all of NATO territory.
This is a deliberate, cold-blooded and long-planned invasion.
NATO, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is a military alliance between the US, Canada, and about 30 European nations. Ukraine is applying to become a NATO member, but hasn't been formally admitted. But what has the other top world power have to say? As Putin's only major partner, China has not expressed particular support for Russia, although in recent years China has developed a closer relationship with Russia, supporting it at the United Nations. And on top of that, just before the Beijing Winter Olympics, the two countries declared a no-limits partnership, backing each other over standoffs on Ukraine and Taiwan, alongside a $100 million gas deal. Despite China's apparent lack of support for Russia's actions, Beijing is not siding with Western countries either. It's so far refused to call Moscow's move an invasion. A Beijing spokesperson dodged the question on Thursday.
You are using a typical Western media questioning method of using the word invasion. China is closely monitoring the latest situation. We call on all sides to exercise restraint to prevent the situation from getting out of control.
Though the Chinese Communist Party did criticize the U.S. for providing weapons to Ukraine.
We wouldn't provide weapons to other sides when we see a risk of conflict, and we would not provide Ukraine with a large number of military facilities and equipment like the U.S.
Amid the attack, trade remains an important factor for Beijing. China imports energy from both Russia and Ukraine. Beijing spokesperson explained China and Russia are comprehensive strategic partners, while Ukraine is also a friendly and cooperative partner to China.
We will carry on normal trade with both countries, including trade of energy sources.
China denounced sanctions against Russia on Wednesday and blamed the U.S. and its allies for provoking Moscow.
As China's stance garners attention from the international stage, a Chinese state media outlet may have accidentally released its apparent censorship rules for Russia-Ukraine coverage. A curious post appeared on Chinese social media Weibo Tuesday. It was deleted soon after. In it, state-run video news network Horizon News instructed staff to avoid posting any Ukraine-related content on Weibo that may come across as unfavorable to Russia or as pro-Western. It goes on to say, quote, "Let me review your draft first before you put it out. appearing as though the message came from a manager and was sent out to staff. The post also added that all commentaries must be carefully selected and controlled. Russia's attack on Ukraine may extend beyond geography. One expert says Russia's sanctions may shift the global power structure, a change that could benefit the Chinese Communist Party. Next, we break down the triangle between the U.S., Russia, and China.
China affairs analyst Tang Jingyuan says Russia's attack is an invasion into a sovereign country, and its actions are forcing the U.S. and Europe to shift their focus.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine is indeed forcing the strategic focus of the United States and NATO to shift to Europe. One can say it drastically reduces the pressure on the Chinese Communist Party, and this is actually not in the strategic interest of the United States.
Tang says Russia's invasion will likely harm Europe too, something that stands to benefit Beijing.
Europe will be even more caught up in a game with Russia. Europe won't have as much energy to deal with the Chinese Communist threat anymore. They may even have to compromise with the Chinese Communist Party in some aspect, because in order to reduce the pressure from Russia, he may have to do so.
And what happens if the U.S. steps into the military confrontation with Russia?
If an armed conflict really breaks out between Russia and the United States, it will have the same effect as the 9/11 incident. It will cause the entire U.S. strategic and foreign policy focus to totally shift to Europe and to Russia. That will give the Chinese Communist Party time to breathe.
But Tang notes Russia doesn't want this either.
It's the same for Russia. Actually, for Putin, he doesn't want to see the rise of a powerful communist regime, the Chinese Communist Party. He doesn't want to negotiate with his neighbor China or compromise in order to maintain a relationship with it.
Tang believes that Russia hopes the entire Western world will take aim at Beijing, not Moscow. But how did the situation get to this point? Tang says Russia would rather take the position of an observer, that is, to watch the U.S. and China duke it out.
Putin used to compare a fight between China and the U.S., a fight between a lion and a tiger. And he says Russia is the monkey that's watching the fight, so he really doesn't want to get involved.
Ultimately, Tang says Putin changed his stance due to the U.S. and Europe's strategic position towards Russia. Both of them view Moscow as a major enemy and a threat.
A Justice Department program working to block Chinese spies is coming to an end. That's after complaints that it may fuel racism against Asian Americans. Here's more.
The Justice Department is ending its China Initiative, the program aiming to deter Beijing from stealing American technology. That's after the program came under fire over allegations of targeting Asian Americans.
And while I remain focused on the evolving significant threat that China poses, I have concluded that this initiative is not the right approach, and instead, the current threat landscape demands a broader approach.
The announcement comes as Beijing continues to steal American technology and trade secrets, as it looks to surpass the U.S. The FBI director says the Bureau has over 2,000 open investigations into related cases.
When we tally up what we see in our investigations, over 2,000 of which are focused on the Chinese government trying to steal our information and technology, there is just no country that presents a broader threat to our ideas, our innovation, and our economic security than China.
On top of that,
we're constantly opening new cases to counter their intelligence operations, about every 12 hours or so.
The Justice Department set up the China Initiative in 2018, when it was alerted of growing economic espionage from China.
We are here today to say enough is enough. We're not going to take it anymore. It's unacceptable. It's time for China to join the community of lawful nations.
He adds Beijing's theft poses a threat to America's national security.
Discoveries that took years of work and millions of dollars in investment here in the United States can be stolen by a computer hacker or carried out the door by an employee in a matter of minutes.
One example is GE Aviation.
The DOJ convicted a Chinese intelligence officer for attempting to steal the company's technology. The Justice Department also prosecuted a Taiwanese company for working with Beijing to steal microchip technology from U.S. tech giant Micron. The Taiwanese company pleaded guilty and paid a $60 million fine. Aside from employees, Beijing also steals trade secrets through academics under a state-run effort called the 1,000 Talents Program. In one case, scientist Hong Jitan joined the program and later stole $1 billion worth of trade secrets from a U.S. petroleum company. The DOJ's China initiative has led to at least 20 guilty pleas and convictions, including a Harvard chemistry professor and the chief financial officer of tech giant Huawei. Though on several occasions, the DOJ has dropped related charges. For example, it charged MIT professor Gang Chen for alleged grant fraud, but later walked back the move. That's after the Energy Department said even though Chen didn't disclose his ties to China, the relationship wouldn't have affected his grant application. Cases like this have stirred controversy, and critics say the China initiative has a chilling effect on science collaboration, and that it could fuel racism against Asian Americans. Despite polling the China initiative, the department says it
will continue to prioritize and aggressively counter the actions of the PRC government that harm our people and our institutions. But our review convinced us that a new approach is needed to tackle the most severe threats from a range of hostile nation-state actors.
Moving forward, Olson says the DOJ will broaden its efforts to counter threats beyond China.
That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program on YouTube. Full episodes can be watched on our website, www.ntd.com/ChinaInFocus. You can also find out where to watch us live on cable in your city at ntd.com/TV or on NTD's partner platform, Epoch TV. To sign up, please click the link down below. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.